customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast. Today, Chief Revolution Officer of the DiJulius Group, John DiJulius, interviews Dr. Vance Thompson, whose genuine love for people and enriching of their lives is contagious and inspiring. Dr. Thompson is one of the most amazing human beings you'll ever meet. As owner of Vance Thompson Vision, he has totally disrupted the LASIK and cataract surgery field. Their offices provide a world-class employee experience, patient experience, vendor experience, and community experience. In this episode, you'll find out why the medical industry is so far behind in delivering a world-class patient experience, how Vance Thompson Vision attracts and hires only employees with high service DNA, how they train their employees to deliver an exceptional patient experience, the amazing experience that separates them from any other business, the amazing employee experience that separates them from any other business, and what Vance's personal mission in life is. Now here's your host, John DiJulius.
Hello, revolutionaries, and welcome to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. And I know I say this a lot, but I am so excited about today's guest, Dr. Vance Thompson. And I've known him at least 15 years, probably longer. I am such a fan of his. I am actually worried about this because there are so many things I want to talk to him about that I know we can't have a 3-hour podcast, but just talking professionally would cheat you all. And that could be a 3-hour, what he's done in his industries and how he's revolutionized his industries, but what he's like as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a friend. So let me try to get to it. But so I know Vance, Dr. Thompson, through working and hearing about how he's disrupted the LASIK eye surgery industry. And we're going to get into that. And the patient experience, he is the Ritz-Carlton of patient experience. And that is complimenting Ritz-Carlton when I say that. I've been to his practices. I've spoken to his teams. I have learned more from he and his team than I could ever teach him. So I got to stop gushing, and I want to welcome Vance. Welcome, Vance. I'm so thrilled we got you on this.
I can't even tell you how excited I am, but to have learned and look so much from you and look up to you so much and hear you say those words, I mean, thank you for having me.
All right. So a little background, you've already heard about Vance, but he lives in Sioux Falls. He specializes in laser vision correction, advanced cataract surgery. He's a leading expert in LASIK and cataract surgery, and he strives to enrich his patients' lives by helping them experience visual clarity. And while that may sound like a tagline, it is not doing him justice. He strives, and this is just my opinion that is confirmed by hundreds of thousands of people. He just strives to enrich people's lives in saying good morning to you. So, Vance, I just wrote an article that I probably upset a lot of people that was titled, "It's No Wonder Why Your Doctor, Lawyer, and Accountant Suck at Service." So I started with a joke. It's a blog. Did you hear the story of a patient who raved about their doctor? The answer is me neither. And so, I talk about why, and I want to get your opinion on this generally. And I know you don't want to bash your industry, but those three professions, what I feel that they have in common, and I know we're generalizing, and there's great people and great professions, as you are an example, and you're not the only one in all professions. But here's why I think the majority of people in the legal, financial, and medical lack in the client-patient experience. One, there's an abundance of education you got to get through to just get certified, license. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't stop there. It's not like when you graduate from medical school or law school, you're done. It's constantly being updated, and it's not like there's a lot of room. There is, I think a certain amount of ego that comes from that because of how highly educated and, but as I think you will agree, technical brilliance, medical brilliance, legal brilliance is a commodity. There's a lot of smart, talented doctors out there. I say my accountant saved me $25,000 last year on a tax loophole. And while I appreciate that, I'm pretty sure any accountant I would choose would know that same tax loophole. So by itself, is financial brilliance is a commodity. And then the third thing is that, I have four. So the third thing is there's a lack of soft skill training in those industries because there's such a heavy emphasis on the medical technical training. And then my fourth thing here I have is there's a need for non-technical senior leaders. I believe that so many of the people running those practices are the partners, are lawyers, accountants, and they don't necessarily bring in enough people from the outside that aren't in the profession. So I'm so okay with you telling me, John, here's where you're off. Please, I'd love to get your perspective on this. And I know I came out with a lot there. What do you think, Doc?
Well, I agree with you, but I would add in addition that in those professions and many others, there's a lot of need out there. And over the years, there's been a lot of business of people needing those services. But as soon as there gets to be competition, or as soon as there gets to be maybe an elective decision that you don't have to do, for instance, in elective medicine, there's a want. And when there's a want, you start getting compared to others. And the cliche, people want to know how much you care before how much you know. So you can actually, in a lot of those services, have a good business. But if you want to have a great business, if you want to really go to the next level or be as great as your potential, the missing link is the people part. And that's the part that I've worked hard on to optimize my business.
So to clarify, in case people don't know, explain to them what elective is and some examples.
Well, for instance, since I operate on the focusing elements of the eye, and when I explain it to a patient, everybody understands the pupil. In front of the pupil is the cornea that focuses light. In back of the pupil is the lens that focuses light. They're both technically focusing lenses. When that lens gets cloudy behind the pupil, you have a hard time getting a driver's test. You have a need. And so you're going to go find someone to do your cataract surgery. When you want to see without glasses and you're going to do laser vision correction on your cornea, you have a want because you can already see with glasses or contact lenses and you're considering seeing without them. And those are the patients that know that they have options, not only to not do it, but that different people can do it. And so that's how I talk about elective medicine is something like laser vision correction, where a needs-based medicine would be like, cataract surgery or your heart needing attention.
Right. So we all need our doctor, our general MD. We don't need Botox. It's a want. Many of us, probably the majority of us, the thing, need to wear glasses or contacts. We don't have to have LASIK surgery. So plastic surgery, all those are elective. And I've always loved working in those industries. And quite frankly, those are the industries that will work and care more about the patient experience just because of that. Because I remember I was one of the first people ever, that I knew to get LASIK. I believe like 20, 25 years ago, whenever it was, I know it's been out before that, but the version that, well, at least when I got it, I remember the first 4 times I went, I didn't do it. And one was because the first 3 was I met with the doctor, and obviously, and you still get this question, I'm sure today, what's the chances of me going, blind? And every time the doctor just rolled his eyes and thought it was a silly question. But I'm sure today, but 25 years ago, that's a legitimate question, right? I didn't like it. I wasn't comfortable with it. But I also remember when I was thinking about spending at that time $3,000-$4,000, I think it wasn't that I was competing with another LASIK surgeon. I was saying, do I want to finish my basement? Do we want to go to that trip to Disney? Like that was what I was looking at. What was more important at that time? It was an option. It wasn't something I ever, and you still don't have to do today. And so if I haven't pissed off the entire medical profession yet, this next one may be. When I'm about to talk, and people listen to this podcast because they want to hear about world-class customer experience best practices. And it's so funny. I almost feel like I have to clarify, even though he's a doctor, he's amazing at customer service, right? Like, when does the doctor, term hurt your credibility? Well, usually when you're talking about world-class customer experience. So why did you go down this road? How early in your career or late in your career did you realize that you had to make a world-class patient and employee experience? Where did that epiphany come from in your journey?
Well, I went into medicine because I, cared deeply, about taking care of people. And I've always been a people pleaser. I mean, I was a waiter, I was a bartender, I worked in a clothing store, I was an aide in a nursing home and a hospital. Everything I've done has been serving others. So I had a natural, servant heart. And that's why I felt medicine would be great. And, after I finished, my chemistry degree in medical school and interning and my MD and my eye surgery training and my fellowship in advanced refractive and cataract surgery, I set up practice in my home state of South Dakota. And for the first 8 to 10 years, having a nice growing practice, I felt like there was something missing. And to tell you the truth, I was hearing more team complaints and patient complaints than I would want. And I never ignored a complaint, and I never will. Not only am I going to work hard on it, but I think it's what leads to organizational excellence is, addressing your complaints and trying to minimize what made it happen. But I was so frustrated that I just didn't have anything that I knew of to study about the people part. No one had ever taught me that. And that's when I started looking into some of the books that were out there, such as, Jim Gilmore and Joe Pine's The Experience Economy, and your book, Secret Services, like parchment paper now in my practice. All my staff reads it. We use it for breakout sessions and your other books. We've kept up with everything you do. But to someone who valued the sciences and studying, it took me understanding that, wow, I can study the people part of my world too. And being a people pleaser, it was something that I just took an oath that I was going to dedicate the rest of my career to. And I'm telling you, once you decide you're going to do that, you will never be satisfied with your team and your patient experience. You will be passionately attracted to the journey, but it was a decade of frustration that led to it.
Yeah. And so what I think you're saying is it's always been in you.
Yes.
I'm guessing that, in your industry, and how many years have you been in your industry?
29 years now of practice. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, there weren't a lot of Vance Thompsons for you to base, to role model after. And you are such a junkie. I have interns that are working with us listening on this interview. And I was just telling them this morning, you have to consume. If you want to be the best at what you do, you have to consume. And I will say, there's no one I've met that consumes more than you. I know you have to consume an ungodly amount of medical, technical, but you have invested in you and your team with James Gilmore, the father of experience and a mentor of mine. And, you've sent your team. You are just always at the events and consuming. And, tell us about that. Like, you just have a thirst for learning.
Yeah, but I have an even deeper thirst for pleasing my fellow man. And, it took me a while to figure this out. But when I did, I never let go of it. And that is, you gotta, have a great team experience before you're ever going to have a great customer or patient experience. And, I have a little mantra that I like to say, as long as we love and care for each other, we will create an environment where patients feel loved and cared for. And so
Wait, Vance, say that again.
As long as we love and care for each other, we will create an environment where patients feel loved and cared for. Basically, you got to have a great team. I love the phrase work family, work brothers, work sisters, the same thing that makes a great family at home, the same thing that makes a great family in a business. And people can say they care, but it's the actual execution and the carrying out of caring, and in every way making someone feel loved like family. When you do that, you create an environment where the customer or the patient is blown away. I don't know what's going on here, but all I know is I love how they treat each other. I love how they treat me. I not only trust them to do my eye surgery, but I'm going to tell my friends.
So I love this. And this is where I want to start transitioning to like the tactical things, because right now to the listener, it sounds like, yeah, this is all great. But, so I want to ask you, all right, you hire me tomorrow, or my son, or these 3 interns sitting on this call with us right now, and they're going to work in any capacity at the front desk, the patient experience, on the phones, or as a technician. How do you interview for that love quote and a people-pleasing mission that you and your companies are on? And how do you train it where it's not just a platitude that, no, I'm serious about this? Like, how do you find people that are capable of that?
Well, I think for one, you got to, do what you did at the beginning and what got you to where you're at. And you can't forget, just like being a good parent for the first child, you can't let your guard down for the 10th child if you want to have them end up great. And we started with a practice of 1, and now we have over 250 employees. And I've always worked hard to interview everybody. Every now and then, if I'm giving a lecture in Europe and there's a hire happening, and I say, team, I can do it virtually. But if they have all the reasons in the world that they're the right person, I every now and then don't. But in general, I interview everybody. And I know that I have some people on my team that are going to ask some pretty tough questions in an interview. And that's just fine. But I have a tendency to be the mushy one. And, the mush, to tell you the truth, has, gotten me a long ways. And I'll just tell people that my hero is Winnie the Pooh. And I'll actually bring this into the interview, and they'll smile a little bit and they'll say, but I'm serious. And I'll say, that gang, they all have their insecurities, just like all of us in life. I feel like they're a cross section of society. But if you try to figure out the one reason they've been together all these years, is because they care deeply about each other. And if you want to come work here, and yes, you obviously have the talent. That's why we're sitting here today. But if you want to be someone who doesn't want to interact with the person to your left and the person to your right and be a part of their life and care about what they love personally and professionally, if you don't want to do that, you're going to get so sick of me that you probably shouldn't even come here and work. But if this resonates with you, you are going to love being cared for here in this work family and becoming my work brother or work sister.
I love that. And so many things I want to take off it. And I used to say that, and you make me feel like a horrible boss. I have 150 employees, and I don't know if I've been part of the interview process in the last 50 or so. It's amazing that you can be part of it. But what I used to say is, after you hopefully interview with 4 times, you are, or maybe after the first time, you're going to say, whoa, that guy or that person or Matt Jensen or whoever is a little over the top with this stuff. Or you're going to say, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And neither is a bad thing, right? If they're like, this doctor's talking about Winnie the Pooh, like, give me a break. So, but let's clarify what the correlation metaphor with Winnie the Pooh is.
Well, the fact of the matter is I'm trying to hire caring people. And, someone taught me once that Secret Service is not something you do. It's something that is in you. It's something that's in all areas of your life, your customers, employees, family, and neighbors. And when you taught me that, John, I carried that with me into my practice. And so when you're doing an interview, you don't have a lot of time to have someone get to know you or you to get to know them. And so I have a tendency to push the envelope. I know going deep early with the Winnie the Pooh story is a little bit of a shocker for people, but I want to shock them to their core and have them understand what the foundation of our practice is, and that is loving, caring for each other. And we want people that love and care for their fellow man away from work, just like we hope they do at work. And in general, it's worked very good.
See, Vance, you taught me something again. Like I train and we have workshops and we consult with companies. And I was talking to our interns this week about having interview processes where you want to make your interview process ungameable. And what I mean by that is if I sit down with, young Vance at 19 when he's waiting tables while he's going to college, and I say, Vance, tell me your 2 weaknesses about you. Typically, we know that that's going to be asked, and you're going to say something like, well, I'm a workaholic and a perfectionist, right? You were ready for that question. So you were able to game it. And I was telling them, like, you want to, and this is what you're talking about, get conversational where they can't game it. You could just pick up on their vibe. But something you just taught me that I never even thought of. We are so focused on getting to know the potential employee and what they're made of. And if they have, X chromosome and if they match our core values, what you do that is brilliant is you make sure they get to know you and Vance Thompson. So there might be a rejection slip there on them saying, like I said, whoa, this guy is too warm and fuzzy, too mushy, too serious, too uptight, whatever, you could find out about some. And I love that we have to make sure that they get to know us, because that might be a deal breaker 3 months from now if they didn't know what we're passionate, what our hot buttons are. I love that. That's so cool. So now you hire them. How do you make sure? What's that first week, month, year to make sure? Vance Thompson Vision has such a high level reputation that I say companies like the Ritz-Carlton, Disney, their reputation over promises. You get so sick of hearing about how great they are that when you finally go there, you almost have a chip on your shoulder saying this place can't be that good. And in your neck of the woods, in your sandbox, that's what Vance Thompson's like. People brag and say it's the best place. So how do you make sure a new employee can keep up with that standard? Because that is a high bar that you've set.
Well, it involves a fair amount of education and time, and of course, leading by example. But I don't think anything has had more impact than the amount of time we spend with our team. I have some amazing leaders that I work with, and I know Matt Jensen, and some of my other teammates. And it's so wonderful when I'm in surgery knowing that these things are being carried out. But we love handing them the book, The Experience Economy by Jim Gilmore and Joe Pine. We love handing them the book, Secret Service by you. We love handing them the book, Raving Fans by Ken Blanchard. And they gradually get thinner. And I don't care which order they read them in, but they can get their arms around it. And they start the reading process. And I don't even know if they read them all, but they know how serious that it is. And we have lectures that we prepare for them so that they are, onboarding and knowing exactly, the way we are and what we expect. And to tell you the truth, it makes it really fun. That's why I think millennials, saved the world, because they were so purpose-driven that if you didn't have a lot of these things, they didn't want to stay and work. They actually made me better. And so when patients come in or doctors come in even to say, how do you get all these happy people? Well, it's not so much about hiring happy people. That's probably the easiest. But what you find when they join is they're people, and they have happy and unhappy in them. And the environment they create is what allows that inner greatness to come out and show itself in a way that they've never had before. And for me, being a doctor who, just really wants to be a great coworker, I made a set of questions that were for me, that I care so much about my coworker that I'm kind to them. Yes or no? I think of them as work family. Yes or no? I care about what they care about. For example, their family. Every day when I see them, I say hi and smile with eye contact. I don't pass anybody and don't do it. And I mean it. Yes or no? I interview others thinking about their influence on my team. When I am deciding to close the clinic for a holiday, I'm thinking of their joy and not my cost. When they make an honest mistake, I accept their apology and I don't lose my temper. And if I lose my temper, I don't feel right until I apologize, because I'm not perfect. And when they stop by the office to introduce their loved one or child and I'm busy, I drop everything to talk and meet them. I don't miss that opportunity. And when I hear something nice, I tell them, and I encourage them when they seem down. And the last question is the most important. If my team answered these questions for me, yes or no, they would say, I treat these situations like I say I do. And so to me, it's about creating an environment, not only in the hiring process, but the onboarding process, and then being consistent with time and showing how deeply you care and love about what they care and love about personally and professionally. And then that work family, that's what's going to go out and win the game for you, because there's just no way to touch every customer. There's no way. But when you work hard with your team on this stuff, every one of your team is influencing the team, and every one of them is touching the customer. So everybody is affecting the customer when you work hard, reading the books and doing the retreats and closing your business and doing the breakout sessions and working hard in this journey that you want constant improvement in.
I just got to clarify for my listeners, my revolutionaries. If you're just joining it somehow in mid-podcast, I want to make sure you know I am not interviewing the GM from the Ritz-Carlton or an executive from Disney. I'm interviewing a doctor. I know that might sound crazy, but like the way you're talking, and it's true. And that's why you're on this podcast, and I've seen it, experienced it, heard about it. It is just amazing. So from that, Vance, you have over 250 employees. And we're talking about the employee experience right now, and that's world-class. And as you state, if it's not felt on the inside, it's never going to be delivered on the outside. However, you're not the only boss they have. You aren't the only leader they have. Right now, you aren't even in Sioux Falls. How do you ensure your other leaders come close to those commandments you just listed, that it's, as an employee team member of Vance Thompson Vision, it's not dependent on, well, Vance is here today. Yeah, it's going to be a good day. But when Vance is off, the other leaders aren't treating me that well. How do you ensure that I am getting that same employee experience from all your leaders?
Well, I got to tell you, John, this is where I have to use the L word, love. And I think in corporate America, people are afraid to use it. And to me, I love reading the books, not only that you've recommended for me over the years, but I love reading the books of the great coaches like Coach K, like Coach John Wooden. And there's so much wisdom on how to develop the best out of a team. And it was Coach Wooden that said, you got to love your team to get the best out of them. I mean, here's a tough guy who coached tough guys, and he used the L word, and my eyes missed it over. And so I have zero difficulty using the love word. And so I love my team. And when you get together with your leaders and you have them understand, how much you love them and how much you love what they love. And if they need to be away, for a family thing or something that means a lot to them, hey, we'll lock arms and take care of things here. You go do what you got to do. And then when I have to do that, they're going to do that for me. It's amazing how these things that make a great family make a great work family. But I also really, really value the fun factor. And I think, telling a dumb joke or having fun with someone takes actual caring about them and wanting to give them attention, just like a dad does for his kids. And then mom rolls her eyes, but everybody has their role. And so if we can give our work family some love, and some fun, it's amazing. And so we program it. We every month do something fun with our team. And sometimes it's their whole family. Like if it's at a bar, we're not going to have their kids, but we'll go sledding. We'll have Easter egg hunts. We'll have painting and arts. We'll have food, but we program this stuff and we make sure that we have fun together, because I actually think that fun is the glue of a family after love. And so those are the things that we work hard on.
This is amazing. Okay, so let's talk about the patient experience and how you disrupted that, because I guarantee you very few, if any, of our listeners have experienced what your team and you provide at your medical practices from the moment they call up. And the amazing thing about your practice that people have to understand is you don't have repeat customers. Right? Hopefully. Right? I mean, right. You have alumni, but if I get my eyes, surgery, hopefully I don't need you anymore after a couple post visits. So it's not like, you have to start over again with a completely new customer, and it's a different business model, which will lead some people, a lot of people, a high percentage of people in that type of industry, not to worry about the patient experience because there's not repeat customers. So what's the point, right? But, let's talk about that. Besides your love for people, the benefits of having a world-class patient experience, which I know it's word of mouth and referrals, but also give us some examples. I need to get you to brag on your experience of how you've implemented or how your team, I know you won't necessarily take the credit here, Matt Jensen, who I want to talk about in a little bit, and so many different people, the things they've implemented it to just shock and awe.
Well, I have to tell you that being a physician, in the end, I have to have a great outcome for my patient. And so I'm committed to using the world's most advanced technology to minimize risk and maximize accuracy. And here I was involved in the beginning of laser vision correction. First started working with it in July of 1990. And I have mentors in my life to thank for, going on that journey. And I've traveled the world studying advanced technology and helping introduce it to our country. So I'm just going to lay that aside, that commitment to the patient and the outcome is there. But in my practice, and I say something that's very delicate in medicine, I say the patient comes second. And in medicine, where they say the patient comes first, I feel like it's one of those traditions that doctors will use as an excuse or a right to treat the staff less than. And I think it's something that medicine misses. And so when I say the patient comes second, I'm meaning culturally. Obviously, I took the oath, the Hippocratic Oath, and I'm going to do the right thing. But when your team feels that loved, they're going to help you to create a great patient experience. And so for me, it's not hard for me to teach my team about empathy and putting them in the patient's shoes. And when you have a new employee, sometimes they don't realize everything that the patient is experiencing. That if they talk in a way, and oftentimes unintentionally, they'll not realize that if you make your patient wait more than 10 minutes, they're going to start feeling anxiety or get bummed if you don't tell them why it's taking a little while, if you keep them informed. Or if you're doing laser vision correction and they smell a funny smell, if you haven't told them that the laser has an odor and they wonder if something bad is happening to their eye, well, you can use your experience to try to be proactive for your staff on everything that's led to patient anxiety. And then your staff starts feeling a part of the process and they don't hurt the process for a patient. But I also think it's important to track your data. And I don't hide my patient satisfaction data from my team. I really like them to understand last month how happy were people, how sad were, what were some of the reasons they were sad, what can we do to work on that? if you get your team working on these things, I got to tell you, John, you as a consultant and a leader have helped me so much, but who's helped me even more are my employees. And that's by teaching them what you taught and what you continue to teach, because we do your newsletter, we keep up with your books, we listen to you, but it's how they take it and come back to us and say, Doc, have you thought about this? And it's amazing what they bring. And I like to call it the science of nice. I coined that phrase because you and Jim teaching us about the Ritz-Carlton or Southwest Airlines or some of these businesses that have really defined this, it's really helped me to think about it in the world of medicine. And so many people have went ahead of us that, have mastered this and continue to work on it, but it takes work and it takes taking the time. And it also takes understanding, in my world, how important patient education is, that people will forget 50 to 80% of what you tell them. And then of what they remember, they'll remember half of it inaccurately. Well, that defines all my patient education materials and my process. So what the phone team says and what the website says and what our patient education materials say and what we say and is repetitive, because you reduce the odds of a misunderstanding every time you repeat it. We think deeply about how things look in our front waiting room. We don't even really like the term waiting room. We call it our front atrium, and it's a very important part of our patient experience. And people have probably heard this before, but if you see on the airplane a coffee stain on the seat, you feel like the engine's not working good. You lose confidence. Well, it's the same thing when you're getting ready to have surgery. If all the magazines are out of order or there's messes, you start to wonder about, wow, is this place going to do a great job for me? And then my team, after teaching a lot of what you taught us, they said, one of the things I don't feel good about as a patient, and I don't feel so good about when I'm coming to get a patient in the front atrium, is just someone blaring my name in front of everybody. Mrs. Johnson, we're ready for you. And they're looking for where Mrs. Johnson is. So my team made a map of every single chair in our waiting room. And it has, numbers, A1, C2, and they can have Mrs. Johnson wearing a blue sweater and red pants is sitting in chair C1. And then they can go right up to that and they can go, Mrs. Johnson, my name's Anna. And with smile and eye contact, and so excited that you're here today. And not everybody's hearing it, and they're being treated like they've never been treated in the doctor's office, but they came up with that idea. And so this idea of spending time with your team and going through what I like to call the science of nice and thinking of ideas that these other businesses have taught us and how can we put that into the practice of medicine has been so helpful.
Learn more from owners, authors, and others who are changing the world through the experience they deliver. Join us at this year's Customer Service Revolution Conference, October 5th and 6th in Cleveland, Ohio. Tickets are limited and on sale now at customerservicerevolution.com.
I can't keep up with the notes. I'm learning again. What I love is, so my biggest pet peeve, I actually have an issue with this as a consultant because I hear it too much and it's kind of my acid test for if you get it or you're not. So I will tell the stories of what, Southwest or Amazon or, Starbucks or whoever does. And so often people come up to me and say, we're not in the hospitality. We're B2B. We're financial. We're medical. That's not the same. And this is my weakness. This is more of a confession where I just, get angry and I'm like, want to say, you idiot. But this is where you're brilliant. You studied Gilmore and the experience economy, and you look at Southwest and you looked at my white cape from Secret Service, and you didn't say, well, that's a hair salon. We don't have repeat customers. All our customers are relatively new. I haven't talked about this in a long time. So what we have in my first business, John Roberts Spa, is where you come in and you'll see a bunch of people with black and white capes on. And 8 or 9 might be in a black John Roberts haircutting cape, or 1 or 2 might be in a white John Roberts haircutting cape. Now, to you, the guest, we have black and white capes. To anyone that works there, anyone in white is a new customer. They've never been there. So you go up and you say, hey, welcome for your first time. If I see someone in black, I can go up and say, hey, great to see you again. Welcome back. And they're scratching their head. So Dr. Vance and his team hear this, and they don't say, well, that's all well and good, but we don't have repeat customers that come back to us every month like a hair salon. No, they take it and they do things like this. And I think you've done more stuff like that. And this is just, I love your mentality. Like you just look at, your question is, how can we do something like this? So again, go if I haven't, please share how you've done the white cape. It's probably the map. What else? Is there a different color clipboard? I forget the ideas I've heard when I've been visiting your locations. Oh, and I here's my ADD. You've mentioned your atrium. His atrium is beautiful. Like you think you're walking into a hotel. It's not a doctor's office where it's like these uncomfortable chairs and no one talks to each other in white paint. Like if you've never been there, you'll step in and then you'll step outside and recheck the name of the business because you thought you didn't walk into the right place. So he's certainly not doing it justice. But sorry, please tell them about your other experience because this is what I love.
Well, I love how the team did the map. I just think it was revolutionary. But what also happens during that process, whether it's the phone or a website discussion, or whether it's the, first impression that they're having with the front desk, or it's the tech taking them back, or a doctor thing, or the last impression as they get checked out, we call it the kiss goodbye, how it's such an important opportunity to have them remember how much we cared about them. There's so many interactions that happen that they're telling you things that maybe it's their pet, or maybe it's their spouse, maybe it's an illness, and maybe unfortunately someone passed away. Maybe it's a soft drink that they love. Maybe it's a food that they love. I'll use, for example, when we were doing cataract surgery on a patient who said, they had a little bit of anesthesia and they had said that they just loved Gino's Pizza. Well, that's in Chicago and we're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We made sure that next morning Gino's Pizza showed up, at their doorstep. And what that did to touch them, besides their vision, was absolutely amazing. But when they show up in the exam room and their favorite soft drink is there, or their favorite music is playing because it was figured out by one of the team members what they love to listen to, there's all these.
I like Barry Manilow. Would you guys be able to play that, or would that upset people?
Oh, no, we would play that. We might, get a little impatient with too much Kenny G, but, Barry Manilow, but it's whatever the patient wants. Right. And it's so fun, surprising and delighting them. And I think that what happens to a lot of businesses is they kind of forget what a patient or a customer values, what in the business world is called a motivator. And they forget what is a hygiene factor, that if it's not there, it's going to be noticed, but it's not the true differentiator. And I think that doctors in particular can, get it mixed up. What it is that's truly moving a patient to come see you. I don't think that a patient is coming to see me because I have the most advanced 1,000 hertz laser in the world, and that's why they're there. I think they come expecting that. What I think is really going to show them and be the differentiator, be the true motivator, is how I treat them and how I treat my team and how they treat each other. And the fact that I give them my mobile and I text them and I check on them and I send them thank you notes. And so, understanding what truly motivates people is, really what I think is so important. And that's why we like to work on, what is our kind of patient experience cycle and what is our opportunities to, improve them. Because I think what really people want in this world is to matter. They really want to feel cared for. And that's why we have all our team listen to the Simon Sinek why stuff. What's your why? And what's a how in what we do? And what's a what we do? And I believe in our world, it's not about the technology. That's a what. I'm going to have the world's best technology, but I'm not going to rely on it as my differentiator. It's not about even the surgery we do. I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to respect their vision because it's such an amazing blessing, and I care so deeply about giving them my very best. But I know that at the core of it all is when that daughter brings her mother and sees how much we care about her and her mother and how well we're going to take care of her, and that mother sees how much we care about her and her daughter, that is the true differentiator, and that's the motivator, and that's what's going to build trust.
Amazing. I mean, this is just an ATM machine of ideas. Brilliant. And I was going to say it, and you beat me to it, that if I wanted to open up down the street from Vance or any business, any LASIK surgery, I could go buy the same equipment from Zeiss or whoever your vendor is, and I can copy your procedures and beat your prices, but I can't beat your culture. I can't beat the pulse and the vibe and all that. And so Matt Jensen told me, and we keep on referring to Matt Jensen. Please tell my listeners who Matt Jensen is, who I absolutely love.
Well, my practice, when I was telling you the first decade was frustrating, I'll never forget meeting Matt at age 21, and he was my ad rep to my practice. And then at age 23, I said, Matt, I want to work for you. Will you come join me? And his jaw hit the ground, and he didn't give me an answer for, about 8 months. And finally I said, Matt, I need to hire someone. Do you want to join me? And he goes, what do you see in me? I am an ad guy with a psychology major, and I don't know anything about running a medical practice. And I said, Matt, I love your heart, and I love the way you communicate. And I want it to permeate every fiber of my practice, internally and externally. And the other things like finance and billing and coding, insurance issues, and all these other things that we can rent and we can grow it together. And we may decide to hire those things. But right now, the magic that will cross every single employee and patient in my practice, you have it. And he's been with me now for 20 years, and he has read every one of these books.
He's not a doctor.
He's not a doctor.
Right.
He's become experientially trained by you and Jim Gilmore, and he's passionate about it. And I know when my partners and I are in surgery, he's making sure all these things are happening.
He's one of the best people we've worked with or come across. He could be doing what I'm doing, as you can. He could be writing books. He could be on the lecture circuit. He could teach any business. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, I have a couple stories about Matt. But so Matt told me years ago when I came, the first time I came to visit you, he was telling me about, how you implemented the white capes. He said, we seat people, I don't know if this is still true, but back then, we seat our patients in different areas depending on what stage they're at. And he said, because at certain areas of their, and I might have this a little wrong, but he said, if they're having surgery today, we don't want them out in the general waiting area, experience area that you call it, because there might be someone out there who's a boyfriend waiting for his girlfriend to, have a visit. And you might make it small talk and say, hey, what are you here for? Oh, I'm getting LASIK. And the boyfriend, who's not a patient, says, oh, my buddy went blind from that. And all of a sudden that person's running out of the room, right? So I think this is kind of how Matt described it. So we kind of want them in a safer environment because they're going to have more uncertainty. They're going to have more anxiety because today is the day of their service. So I love that. I got to tell you another Matt Jensen. I love Matt Jensen, like I love you, Vance. And no pun intended, I literally love both of you. So you were just talking about how you teach people to pick up on things that he played baseball in college and this, and that's what we teach. And we tell people, you got to learn people's Ford, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And when you focus on people's Ford, that's what people geek out about. I know we could fill 8 hours, and I know you're passionate about what we're talking about, but if I start talking about hunting, if I start talking about wine, if I start talking about your wife, Janet, if I start talking about your 3 boys, I know there is no end to your excitement, enthusiasm, storytelling, right? That's your Ford, and that's what you geek out about. So I don't know how he did this, but last July 22nd, I get this, and I haven't talked to Matt since the last time I was probably on site at your place. And I don't know, that might've been 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like, it's not like I know Matt that well. I love him, but we're not friends, so to speak. Out of the blue, I get texts for my birthdays. Okay. I get people, that's easy, right? It's nice, but it's easy. It may, so I get this text July 22nd, last year, 2020. And it's from Matt Jensen. I'm like, oh my God, like that. Oh, I'm so excited to hear from Matt. He goes, John, I remember that you met your wife in 1989 on July 22nd. And I was dumbfounded. And he goes, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. And I teared up. My wife didn't even know the date that we had met. I used to, surprise her. But like that just blew out. Like that, he was that attentive to a detail that it blew my mind. And I know I'm going on and on, but I mean, like, that's who Matt Jensen is. And Matt's learned it from you. And I know he's, and I could tell why you stalked him at 21 and wouldn't let him. But that's also one of the key reasons why your business has grown. And because you are not up front. You're in a room most of your day when you're at work. And you might, as a doctor, have least to do with the patient experience, right? You're touching the patient the least. And when you're touching them, they're not awake. So we can't say Vance Thompson has a world-class experience because of Vance. You're not even the one, coming in contact, but people like Matt and people at your front desk and people on your phone. So those are just examples. So I know we could talk about Matt Jensen. He's amazing, but that's what type of people you have. I want to talk real quick. And this is really what made me think about having you, Vance. So Zeiss is a client of mine. And they're an equipment supplier, or what's the correct term to say in your industry?
Well, they have the world's best optics, but they definitely make some of the world's best lasers and microscopes and implants and things. We remove a cataract or fix a retinal detachment, and they are in so many industries. But in the eye world, they're one of the world leaders.
Yeah. And they work so hard. Their customer is the practices, is the Vance Thompsons of the world. And so they have me present a lot of times to their clients, the doctors. And so we were talking and they were saying, we really need to help our refractive surgery, LASIK practices raise the bar because there's these cost cutters that are coming in and charging $300 an eye. And everyone's saying, oh my God, we got to chase price because they don't see the difference. And it reminds me of Vance's great story. And I don't have the statistics off of my head, but in the 70s, the consumer behavior for coffee purchases, and I'm butchering this up, but was close to 90% consumers based their coffee purchase based on price. Okay, that's in the 70s. So now when everyone in the coffee business says, well, therefore, the consumers are demanding, we have to be the cheapest. Why? The proof is at 90% based on price. You'd be an idiot to compete on anything else. Well, now in the 80s, Starbucks, well, they opened in the 70s, but they start gaining traction on the 80s. And now like less than 25% of people today buy coffee based on price. But that's what made me start thinking about when we were talking with Zeiss and my presentations for doctors. They said, why can't everyone think like Vance Thompson Vision? I'm like, oh my God. And that's what reminded me of you. And like, you're the Starbucks. You're not going to chase price. You're not going to be the cheapest. I mean, I wrote another article about things you don't want to shop to the lowest bidder. Okay. And so my first example was, all right, let's say you and your wife, are at the doctor's office and the doctor says, well, Dr. Thompson, you have a heart problem and you need a heart transplant. And your wife says, well, doc, do you have any specials? And he says, no. Well, we're going to wait. We're going to go online, see if we can find better deals, or we're going to wait till the fall because we think in the fall there's going to be specials on hearts. Like, would you do that? I hope not, right? You don't want to shop a heart transplant to the lowest bidder. But then my next one is eyes. Like, are you kidding me that you're going to shop to the lowest bidder on eyes? Like, it's crazy. So I know I'm going crazy on this, but it was so fun when I was talking to Zeiss, and we were talking. They were talking about how, you know, a lot of their practices are chasing price, and they said, why can't everyone build the experience like Vance Thompson, and they make price irrelevant, right? Because it's about the patient experience. So that was what reminded me of, oh my God, why haven't I had Vance on this? Because he is the Walt Disney of the patient experience. So, all right, if you want to go off any of that, but we've talked about the employee experience. We've talked about the patient experience, but there's something else you've done. There's two more things I want to talk about along these lines, but there's something else that you did that was so genius. Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong. And this is me guessing, not anything you've ever told me, but I believe working in elective surgery, your top two referrals, I believe, and I did not in any certain order, is obviously previous patient referrals, right? I went there. I love it. Right. It's the greatest place. You got to go there. But I also believe you're just as close, if not more, is other doctors, opticians, help me out. And
optometrists.
Optometrists. Thank you. That's a big piece of your business, right?
Yes.
Is it number one or number two? It's in there?
So definitely patient word of mouth is number one, and optometrists and ophthalmologists refer to us. And I think when a patient is sitting there getting ready to have a procedure done, that optometrist will oftentimes be asked, if it was your eyes, where would you go? And we're just, delighted to have them have the trust and confidence in us. But what also happens is that sometimes they'll have more than one option on their list. And when you've really been good to patients and they've told their friends, and that friend is listening now to even a list, they oftentimes will choose you out of that list because of what their friend told them. And so it all works together in a very complementary and synergistic way.
Well, here's what I'm getting at, right? No one thinks like you do, okay? And they think about, if you want to call it the vendor experience and how important that is. So what was it 5 or 6 years ago? You bring me in, and you might remember that, how long ago it was. It might have been longer, it might have been sooner, but Matt's set me up, and I'm coming in to, and I think I'm coming in to speak to your team. And Matt's like, no, we're not bringing in this time to speak to the team. What is that big conference you put on for, I think opticians in your area as a thank you? I'm mumbling, but what is it?
Well, so we value number one, the patient, and then number two, the referring doctors, and three, the community. And they all play a very important role. And we ask you to come in and speak to our community as a gift back, because they've shown so much trust and confidence in us. And then having all sorts of businesses, and you spoke to 600 people that were able to get the gift of John DiJulius. And it was amazing to me how much joy you brought them. And then the next day you spoke to our referring doctors, and we do a lot of education of our doctors. We do, oftentimes quarterly webinars. We send out newsletters. About yearly, we do a very big symposium where we'll have a guest speaker like you. And I will never forget when you were working hard, on your slides, and here you speak all over. And I just love how you don't take it for granted. But someone had told me that you were a great athlete and played baseball. And so, and I was holding a ball, and I think
I told you that. Yeah, I'd be the only one that would say that.
I tested you, and probably too much. I got excited, but I threw the ball while you're looking at your slides. And then you said your name, and in mid-flight, you looked up and caught it just like a ninja. Perfect. Sat it down, smiled, and kept working on your slides. And you literally blew the crowd away. But I'm telling you, yes, we care deeply about our team and work hard on it. Yes, we care deeply about our patient and work hard on their experience. But we also work hard on those people that influence our business. And referring doctors and our community matter tremendously to us. We don't take anything for granted.
And that's where I was going with this. And you're always so kind to turn it back on others. And I appreciate that. But, no one thinks like this. Like I said, I'm like, all right, Matt, how many people are going to be on it? He's like 650. I'm like, I thought you had 150, 200 employees. He goes, John, it's not for our employees. It's for every business in Sioux Falls. And I refer to, I'm like, what? Like, and that was just like, I didn't even think of that. And you are so generous to your community. You're so generous to your referring doctors, and you make it about the community experience. You make it about your vendor experience, and you just give and give and give. And like, no one thinks like that, but it comes back tenfold. And that's not why you do it, but you're giving. So that was really cool. So let's try to drive it home, because this could be a mini series with multiple seasons. But I want to end on what I think is your greatest gift, and it's kind of a theme through all this, and it's really the human experience. And it's just every facet of your life. You've talked about love. You talked about having a passion for people. Where did this come from? I know your parents were really important to you. Where did this come from, and how did it cultivate, and how do I get more of it?
Well, it did start with my upbringing, and my parents were very loving people. And I think that it also was just recognizing that what moved people the most in life was how they were treated. And it wasn't so much, as the good or the service, but it was really the people interaction. That's why I like to call it the people experience. Because so many people kind of have a tendency to go to the customer service or patient experience too quickly. They forget a step, and that's that it takes a great team experience to create a great patient experience. And I think I already said it, but I really mean it when I say, as long as we love and care for each other, we will create an environment where patients feel loved and cared for. And there's so many things relationally that people don't even get the joy of, because they keep it so transactional. I will use the dining experience as an example. I think that dining together and breaking bread together, sharing food and wine and conversation is one of the most intimate things you can do with a fellow human. But so many people turn it into a transactional event that my wife and I like to call it, they're just refueling, because obviously humans need the calories to live, but they're missing out on something very important. And you'll remember in one of my favorite movies, Ratatouille, and by the way, I want to make a movie called Attitouille, because you know how important attitude is. But in Ratatouille, that food critic who, was just kind of hard to impress, but when they made that Ratatouille, and it took him back to his mother's Ratatouille, and he got teary-eyed, and I got teary-eyed. And the whole thing moved me so much. It's just another example of relationally, it's kind of like that touching people with food. Don't let it be transactional. If you allow love to come into your corporate environment, it not only is right, it not only is enjoyable, it's fun. And yes, it leads to good business. And you're right, it's not the main reason you're doing it. It's what I would call a trailing result. And you know what? If the business goes through a tough time, you still have these other things that are even greater gifts. It just makes it so fun. And here I am, a doctor who's 61 years old. Well, I know doctors who've gotten cynical because they've forgotten this. And if you can keep love and fun with your team, you are going to have a blast and have a fun, exciting business.
Wow. I don't know if I want to ruin that. I mean, that is such a strong way. I have one last question. When it's all said and done, and you probably just said it, but what is your legacy? What do you want it to be? What are you working towards that it genuinely is on your tombstone, whatever that looks like?
He loved and cared deeply.
That's awesome. And I want to thank you, least of all for being on this podcast, which was amazing, but most of all for loving and caring for me over the years, close to 2 decades it has to be. You've enhanced my life. And every encounter, we text, occasionally, and you'll make my day. We talk, we work together, and you've really done this. And I can't thank you enough for the man you are.
Thank you so much, John. And the feeling is so mutual. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Revolutionaries, for another Customer Service Revolution podcast. We will see you next week.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a thumbs up. We love hearing from you and reading your reviews, like this one from Frederick that said, "Your podcasts are a true inspiration. I keep going back and listening to past episodes again and again." We look forward to continuing to inspire you, and thank you for being part of the customer service revolution. To hear more episodes, subscribe today on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.